So my name is Mark Ross, and I'm a native Tucsonan, and I've been in the mortgage and related real estate industry for over 40 years.
Awesome. In your words, what's the difference between equity marketing, the stuff you guys do here, and conventional brokerage?
So I do lending. So when you're dealing with commercial brokerage, I assume you're speaking of real estate sales. And the equity marketing difference is that you're not worried about the sales price as much as you're worried about the equity or the benefit that comes from that particular asset. So what you're really looking at is whether or not a piece of property can enact or create a benefit for somebody. And either growing up or getting out or those types of things that happen. So from a lending perspective, we are looking at that equity as well. And we're trying to see how we can make a loan that is secured by that equity to enhance the transaction. Most lenders are not interested in anything other than the traditional model.
And why do you think that is?
Creativity isn't there. You know, in the banking world and most lending world, it's driven by rules and regulations and policies and procedures. It's not driven by creativity and how to make a deal happen. I cut my teeth on private money lending back in the 70s, and that was where that's all I knew. I didn't know anything about a conventional or FHA or VA loan. I was 10 years in the industry before I ever did a regular transaction. So I come from a different place than most traditional lenders do.
How do the loans differ?
So they differ in a variety of different ways. Number one, you can get traditional financing when you're dealing with equity types of transactions or trades or exchanges or 1031s. You can obtain traditional financing. And so we provide those types of transactions for people to make sure that it accomplishes their needs. But in addition to that product, there are these non-traditional products. So private money, non-traditional lenders also offer products, fix and flip, which is something that I will often offer people where they want to pick up a piece of property, fix it up, and then sell it. That is an investment mechanism, but it's a particular product geared for that type of transaction. So there's a variety of products that have developed over the years to create an opportunity for people in equity lending and equity transactions. Most people don't want to pay all cash for a transaction. They want to leverage it in some capacity, and that's what these different financing tools allow people to do.
So you're a good asset in these
Right.
rooms.
Anytime you're dealing in a real estate marketplace, you want to have a team of people. You know, you may want an attorney, you may want an accountant, you want a title person, you want a real estate person, and you want a lender. And so depending upon what type of mechanism that you're using or what type of path that you've traveled to develop your wealth is going to determine who you have on that team. And often a lender is one of those people.
Would you suggest or recommend to lenders who are open to this to come in? I mean, or have their broker here?
Well, certainly. I mean, but you generally need somebody in a higher echelon level. You need a senior executive or an attorney or somebody like that has a little bit more creativity. The problem with the banking world is that they're so hamstrung with regulations that they don't have as much flexibility to do things. And so that's where private money and non-traditional money comes into play, is because the banking world has so many fewer opportunities because of the constraints that they have on how they operate their businesses. As an example, they can't invest in the stock market, where in the past they may have been able to do that. Those kind of regulations after the crash in '08, a lot of things changed for the banks, and they just don't have as much flexibility.
What type of people do you think are attracted to exchanging?
It's an interesting world that I've noticed. The people that I see most active, and why I've been involved with the Exchange Group for over 10, 15 years at this point, is because they're creative, and I like that creative element. They come with an attitude of how can I make this deal work, rather than coming with the attitude of what are the obstacles that won't make it work. So there's a different mindset that goes into it. There's a different flexibility. I've seen people exchange gemstones. I've seen people exchange slot machines. I mean, it can be anything. It's just whatever is going to make the deal work is on the table. And so that's the strength, I think, of Exchangers. For me personally, we're in the lending business, but I have lent money and secured by, I did one time where I did turquoise jewelry. So I did mobile homes. I mean, there's a variety of different products. In our world, because of licensing issues and some federal and state regulations, we don't have as much flexibility to make loans because of our license on all sorts of things. But in the past, I mean, I made them on hearing aids. I used to make loans on hearing aids. So there's a variety of different things that you can do in the lending world if you have the flexibility to do it. So I make loans. I mean, I personally invest my money in loan transactions because I feel that I know what the security is. I can go kick the tires. I have control over it. If something goes awry, I can step in and fix it. So that gives me much more flexibility, and I like mailbox money. I mean, the key is that check just comes every month, and you don't have to fix the toilets. You don't have to worry about replacing the carpeting. You just you're not dealing with people or real estate. You're dealing with cash, with loans coming in.
Do you think that there's like a level of camaraderie and teamwork?
Oh, absolutely. You know, in our field and the people that I work with that are in the lending field that do what I do, there's a very close relationship. We're friendly competitors. In the real estate community, we provide opportunities. The problem I see with the real estate community in general is that they're not very flexible. There's a canned way of selling a house, and the agents are taught that way, and their brokers have grown up in that way, and they don't step outside of that. So the real estate community, as a general rule, is not very sophisticated when it comes to other opportunities, private money transactions, exchanges, things like that. It scares them. They just haven't been trained in it, and if they were trained in it more, then they would have a better comfort in it. So I think it's a lack of understanding of what goes on outside of their norm.
If a broker doesn't know about this, and they're kind of thinking about getting their feet wet, do you think that there's like a good level of acceptance, being welcomed?
Sure. I don't think that there's any resistance to entry, any barrier to entry at all. It's just a question of whether somebody wants to go through the process. There's a lot of opportunities to learn. There's a lot of education. Local schools here have courses on exchanging. There are plenty of people in this particular seminar that teach classes on exchanging. There's great opportunity. It's just a question of whether or not somebody wants to take the time to learn.
Do you like your job?
Oh, sure, I love it. I've been doing it, like I said, over 40 years, and if I didn't like it, I certainly wouldn't hang around that long. It's great. Every day is a new transaction. It's not a run-of-the-mill deal. You see all sorts of different opportunities. You get creative. You get to think. You get to work through a problem. We just heard of one today where a customer wants to sell a mobile home, and there's very few opportunities to finance a mobile home to a buyer, and yet we can create a transaction where somebody could end up owning that property to live in, and the buyer would have, and the seller would have an investment transaction out of it. So there's all sorts of different creative ways to make things work, and we're always looking for those things.
Has it been lucrative?
Oh, sure. I think so. I'm still here. I'm still making loans, yep.